Thank you all for being here. I mean, number one, being here at Ignite, and number two, learning about AutoFocus and learning about what we have to do. Who am I? Scott Simkin. I'm part of our threat team. And I really think about how do we do things like detection, how do we do things like prevention, and how do we give you all the intelligence we have to offer to drive better, more automated decisions that keep your organization safer. That's what we think about day in and day out. So I mean, thank you for your time. And just let me do a quick check. Who knows about AutoFocus in the room? Awesome, fantastic. So I'm gonna show you folks a little bit of the context around what we're doing here, but we actually have some new things to release, both that you may have heard about in terms of PanOS 8.0, and some brand new stuff that our product management and engineering teams have just cooked up and are releasing. I think it's already in the market. I'll talk about it at the very end. So to set the stage here, let me ask you another question. Raise your hand if you're in the SOC or a security professional versus a, good? Fantastic. Rest of you network on the firewall side? Excellent. This is a good mix, by the way. Ignite has become more and more of a security show for practitioners, folks who are looking at and picking apart malware, trying to get the context of what you're looking at, versus I remember being not here in Vancouver, but being in Las Vegas 4 years ago. That dynamic would have been entirely flipped, where it's 99% network people and 1% firewall. But with that in mind, the thing that I want to put in your head that you may already know, but I want to review is AutoFocus gives you the tools, gives you the data, and gives you the context for every single one of you to become a threat hunter. And what does being a threat hunter mean? That could have 100 different definitions from 100 different teams. What I think it means is you need to be able to analyze the threats, the actors, the campaigns that are targeting you, that are targeting your industry peers, and you have to understand what are the indicators associated with it, and what do you need to do about it, right? Because if you can't take action on data, you can't get to that decision point of actually changing a firewall rule, driving a new prevention mechanism down into your network. What is the value of intel? So let me ask a third question. How many of you would like more and more and more data to look at in your SIM every day? One, good answer. There's enough data out there, right? The thing we are lacking is not data. The thing we are lacking is the ability to quickly identify what is important, the context around it, and how to drive action on it. So the way I really think about AutoFocus is this. You all should have every single one of those tools available to you in one place from one platform with that decision point and prevention available right away. So going into what I have the great honor of talking to people like yourself, whether it's a practitioner in the field, a director of security operations, a CISO, and I've come to a couple simple conclusions. And by the way, feel free to disagree with me. Like, raise your hand if you disagree, because I'd love to hear your perspective. But I think about the challenges a threat intel practitioner faces as essentially these. As you just said, there are so many sources of intelligence. Subscribe to intel feeds, anyone? Consume open source intel? Yep. You can bring it all together, right? It can come from the open source world, like things like ransomware tracker and Zeus tracker, like more legacy botnets. It can come from internal feeds. It can also come from cert organizations, right? All around the world, there is certs that are giving you data. Oftentimes, they come in the form of PDFs. Are PDFs useful to you? No. They're hard. They're hard to manage. They're hard to operationalize. They're hard to make something happen. So I think about it as you have so many different sources in so many different form factors that all have indicators, right? Whether it's an IP, whether it's a domain, a URL, an API query, a registry key that has changed that you want to look at on the network. You have to be able to bring those all together and make sense of them in human fashion so that you can then do something really important. You have to validate the intelligence. Anyone been in the situation where you've gotten help desk queries that said, security team, why did you block that IP? You just stopped me from doing my job. You all been there? Yes. Do you like being there? No. Because if you do something like block an indicator that actually has the business calling you up and saying, what did you do? You have now let the business down. And you are going to get your management on your case, which is the world of security being a business or a business hamperer or a cost center, I believe is over or is starting to be over. Where what we want to do is have security be that powerful business enabler so that when you do the right things, you have the right high efficacy, you can only make decisions that matter, that keep the organization safer, and you need threat intel and tools like this to make sure you make the right call and you don't have your users trying to get around security. They should be embracing it to keep the company safe, right? Then the last thing is, like I said, data for the sake of data doesn't work. Data for the sake of prevention and context does work. Let me do another quick poll. Do you, when you're thinking about how you drive a prevention mechanism, how many people have Excel sheets with lists of indicators? Yeah, cool. For those of you who don't, are you using indicators and blocking them on the firewall? Okay. So when you're thinking about that, what I'd love every single person to raise their hand and say, I can easily ingest and correlate data to drive automated prevention on the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall in a very, very simple way. That's what I want you to all walk away from this session knowing. Of course, one of the primary benefits, and I'm not going to talk about the platform too much, the focus of this is on threat intel, but I just want to set the context of where AutoFocus exists in the platform that we offer here at Palo Alto Networks. Yes, we have amazing other capabilities across the next generation firewall, the cloud, and the endpoint that's providing consistency across all of it. But where does AutoFocus sit? AutoFocus is sitting at the top of the stack, where it gets enrichment from all of the data we have that we have visibility into. And I'll tell you exactly where that data comes from and what that data scale looks like in just a moment. But top of the stack to give you perspective into all of the intelligence, whether it comes from traps, whether it comes from Aperture, from the firewall, or physical, virtual, or in AWS or Azure. It's your window and it's your operational tool to get at that data and to do interesting things with it. So that's all I'm going to say about the platform, and we can talk more at the end of it. Now, what about the data? Because in the Intel world, the fidelity and efficacy of your data is paramount, because junk in equals junk out. And what that looks like for Palo Alto Networks is more than 17,000 Wildfire customers. That is the basis of everything we do in AutoFocus. Do we pull in third-party feeds? Absolutely. Do we pull in other sources of intelligence? Yes. But our unique proposition is those 17,000 Wildfire customers that are giving us a vast amount of high-fidelity data that nobody else in the market has. Quick fact. We have nearly 3 to 4 times the number of malware analysis customers than our next biggest competitor has customers total. Is that a good thing in the Intel world? Yes. I got my Unit 42 shirt on, so we think about Intel every day. In aggregate, the network effective Intel is tremendous. 3.1 billion samples, rising at a rate of 215 million a month. You've all heard this before from Lee Klarich, but what he didn't tell you is the more than 3 petabytes of data that represents and the trillions of indicators that you can get access to. AutoFocus is the way you get access to and pivot on all that amazing data. And of course, we drive new prevention from it. 5 minutes later, Wildfire does it. Now, let me take a moment and distinguish between Wildfire. I'm guessing all you have Wildfire, or most of you, yes? Yep. I often get the question, so we have Wildfire, what do we do with AutoFocus? Think about it this way. The use case of Wildfire is to say, I want to drive 5 minutes later from anyone in the world across the network better preventions with hands off. That's what it does. It does it very well. But what does AutoFocus do? Now you say, I want to actually provide a level of prevention and a level of enforcement above and beyond the automation of wildfire. So that's, wildfire gets you to that 99% like Nir talked about. AutoFocus helps you get to that 99% that we want to get you to. Not 100%, because anyone who tells you that in the security industry is a liar. But it'll get you further and further and further down that road. Of note, the Threat Intel Cloud overall and AutoFocus specifically can send preventions to, yes, the next generation firewall, in policy via external dynamic lists. That is a very important feature. If you're not using EDLs, as we call them, please leverage them. And then also, you can use our new capability, MindMeld, that I'll give you a little more detail about in just a minute, to drive preventions in other network or endpoint or SIM enforcement and analysis systems. So AutoFocus isn't just about feeding your firewalls. AutoFocus is about feeding the whole network and giving you enrichment for everything in a very, very powerful way. Now, I told you I'd tell you about the sensors and the enforcement points. This is a critical perspective on AutoFocus. The way in which where we get our data from is, yes, NGFW. We also have millions of Traps endpoints. How many of you are submitting files via Traps? Couple, okay, not too many. Think about if you go down the road of Traps, that Traps integrates with Wildfire. Traps also integrates with AutoFocus. So millions of Traps sensors feed into it. We also have third-party data that is going into the system from our technology partners and others across more than 75 different sources, because we don't know what we don't know. And we want to know everything for you, so you can know everything and you can do interesting things with that data. Plus Aperture, so including SaaS-based applications. What's happening there? What is the malware propagation and malware delivery in SaaS apps? That you, again, have denotions of visibility in AutoFocus where it's from. And importantly, it is also our competitors. So Cyber Threat Alliance. CTA is a pretty amazing organization in the security industry where we got together with, I know we're at our user conference and I shouldn't say these names, but Cisco, Checkpoint, Fortinet, Symantec, Intel Security are all sharing threat intel in real time with each other for you. So we can drive better visibility and better prevention and get that data back into AutoFocus and back into Wildfire from other people. So again, you are safer, whether it's from a competitor or not. I care more about prevention than I care about giving my competitors a potential leg up. Because here's the trick. Threat intel is not intellectual property. It's not. How many of you over your career have heard threat intel is intellectual property? Yes? It's not. Threat intel should be open, should be free, should be shared, and consumable by anyone. When I think about what we're delivering via AutoFocus, what we're delivering via Unit 42, and the amazing research that team does, and what we can allow for you to leverage, it is the free access of intel that can enforce and keep you safer. So once we gather all that data from all of our distributed sensor points, we then process it via Wildfire, via our URL filtering and our daily content update engine, where yes, it creates automated prevention, but to me, being the threat intel guy, we get to extract all those IOCs, put them into AutoFocus, make them accessible to our Unit 42 team and to you. And fun note about AutoFocus, if you've heard me talk before, you know this, but if you're new to Palo Alto Networks, you may not have heard it before. We actually developed AutoFocus as an in-house threat research team for Unit 42, for our analysts, because they were asking us a really simple question. They said, hey, Scott and team, you have all this data, but every time I want to query it, it takes about 45 minutes to run a SQL query and return a result. Sound familiar? That was our own analysts asking a question, and they wanted to do enrichment and context addition for all those amazing sources of data we get in Wildfire. That's why we build AutoFocus. But much like Amazon, much like everyone else in the world, when we have a good idea, we realize our customers are asking us the same sort of questions. So we commercialized it and made it available. So I'm going to show this now, just to set the stage about a little bit about where we're going before I get into the details of AutoFocus. And by the way, I'm going to show you a demo, get into how we use it. This was what we presented on the main stage just yesterday with the Palo Alto Networks application framework. The application framework is actually learning from everything we've done in AutoFocus, Wildfire, and PanDB for the delivery of security services via the cloud. As you can see here, AutoFocus is right there in the upper right, because what we're going to do and where we're going is AutoFocus is going to be a SaaS-delivered app like it is today on top of the application platform. So now, think about this. Third-party apps, our apps, MSSP or partner apps, your apps that you develop as customers can all access the data as well and chain together action. So go from AutoFocus to CrowdStrike to an EDR tool to MineMeld to Traps, whatever you want. This new framework is, number one, we believe going to be the future of the security industry, but number two, going to allow us to leverage all of the amazing intelligence in AutoFocus in new and interesting ways. So we can talk more about that if you want to come up and ask me questions. Of note, the other thing we're doing with the application framework is, you see any threat intel vendors on this list? Yes. We are actually opening up that data sourced from Wildfire and AutoFocus to our competitors, just like we did with CTA. So you can build compelling apps and compelling value on top of it, and hopefully drive better security for all of you in the room. I'll let you take a picture before I go, and we'll provide you these slides as well. All right. So now, for those of you who aren't familiar with AutoFocus, I always like to go through this little story before I get into the demo of what it is we do and what the use case of AutoFocus is. So first, number one, you need to identify the high priority events. Let me take you through two scenarios. What if you get a hash value that says it is malicious? That's all you get. That's what you get with traditional solutions. Does that provide a lot of value for you? No. What if we told you this event was Russian state-sponsored in nature, using a specific malware toolkit, using or as part of a campaign targeting financial services customers? Is that higher value for security action? Yes. So the first thing we do is we prioritize the events based on the context of that event. So now, using our Unit 42 research and your own research, you can say, this is who's attacking me, these are the tools they're using, this is how unique or prevalent it is in my industry that can help you focus and laser focus on the 5 events you need instead of the 200 events you might care about but probably don't need to spend your time on. So with that context baked in, the other thing AutoFocus does is it's not just you. It's not just the data you are seeing. It is all of your peers in the industry. It is all of your peers across the Palo Alto Networks data set that you can look across and say, wait a minute, this is happening to other people other than me. This, and here's the important thing that I just was talking to a customer an hour ago. He said, Scott, I want to show my CISO and my board of directors and my CEO basically a graph of how we're doing. Who's impacting me? What are the actors or campaigns that are coming after me? Oops. And the thing that we want to allow you to do is have those conversations, raise the priority and raise the visibility of the amazing work you do to keep the organization safe with a great, pretty chart that boards and CISOs and CEOs love. So we can give you that as well. And then finally, having that native engineering with the firewall itself lets us drive that prevention back into the system in a way that no other vendor can at the end of the day. All right, so let me talk to you a little bit about a real world example that we pulled from our customers. Anyone remember Grizzly Steppe, Russian state-sponsored activity likely associated with hacking the US election in some way, likely I say. What happened here was there was a CERT alert that came out. It said, watch out for these indicators. Had a big list of IPs, again, in a PDF. That list of indicators, security teams, rightfully so, said, I'm going to block them, as you should. What didn't happen, though, the verification of intelligence and the addition of context. So what the outcome or result was is you block that set of IPs, but guess what? Half of those IPs map back to legit services. Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, because maybe they were being leveraged by the adversary in some intermediary way, or it was just a false flag. So now there's a situation where the attacker was causing businesses to lose access to critical services, maybe even on accident, because security teams didn't have a way to verify all the indicators and drive a new prevention back into the network with the right context. This is truly Russia. This is truly a campaign that's targeting certain industries. And that is something we never, ever, ever want to have happen. And the state of the art today would be looking up in each indicator one by one, maybe on Google, maybe on VirusTotal. Doesn't scale, doesn't work. We want to give you a better way. So that's just one example of what's happening here. So going forward, any of you using MindMeld on AutoFocus? Awesome. Are you using MindMeld open source? Yes, cool. So for those of you who are not, which is the majority of you, MindMeld was an app that we started on GitHub because we believed we had something here. We had some core interesting value that we could offer for free. And that interesting value was really simple in nature. A aggregation point for any third-party source of threat intel. Bring it all together, put it in a rules-based processing engine, and then hook it up to different different outputs to drive prevention. That's all MindMeld is. You could all download it today on GitHub. You can go to our live community and boot it up, start a VM, start on your server, and install it. I encourage you all to do so. But what we did with PanOS 8.0 is say, a lot of our customers said, well, I need a supported hosted version that I don't have to worry about the infrastructure, I don't have to worry about the updating, I don't have to worry about anything. So we provided MindMeld as an app on top of AutoFocus. Anyone who has AutoFocus can instantiate it and do the aggregation, rules-based processing and output very, very simply. So since the two are now together, you can put any source of data back into AF. You can correlate it against other providers. So you can get the true value of these different threat intel feeds because, it was seen by this provider, this provider, this provider, and it was seen by AutoFocus, meaning wildfire. So those two are linked tightly together, and this is how you drive an automated prevention using those external dynamic lists on the firewall, which I'll show you in 1 minute, to really make it simple and make it easy for the firewall admin to do prevention. Of note, the ecosystem for MindMeld is absolutely massive. We have over 150 defined connectors built by you in the audience, our customers. We seeded it, we put some out there, but the vast majority of them have been developed by people who want to hook in feeds into AutoFocus and into MindMeld. So thank you for that. If you see one that's not there, it's really simple to build a new one. But again, it is driving prevention, it is driving forensics, it is driving visibility into the SIM. And this is a snapshot of what our ecosystem looks like. There's a lot of providers out there that, this is a couple of 150. Other providers out there from an open source, a closed source, a commercial, a private perspective that allow you to ingest it and then aggregate it out to our firewalls, things like Tanium for endpoint and Splunk for SIM visibility. So before the demo, one fun thing. We got this request. I can't tell you how many customers I talked to that wanted Multigo Transforms. If you're in the SOC or you're in the security team and you want to visualize the relationship between indicators and between different sources of intelligence, Multigo is one tool and a major tool of choice. And we listened to you. We built a transform engine with Multigo that you can access today. Check it out on the live forum, and we encourage you to download this and to leverage it to really get that visibility and cross-relationship correlation with Multigo and AutoFocus, and hopefully that makes your life a little easier. And I see lots of people taking pictures, so I'll leave this up for a second. It is a wickedly cool tool. It is a wickedly cool tool that I think is going to make your life a little simpler. All right, good. Let me pop out and show you AutoFocus. Perfect. So I'm going to give you a quick tour. This is, I don't have time to go through my full 45-minute demo, but it's important to show you the actual tool in the context that you will be seeing it within your organization. I break AutoFocus into just a couple component parts. One that we'll talk about first is dashboarding and visibility. This is how you get the perspective on what's happening in your organization, what's happening in your industry, and what's happening across the entire data set. And you can pull out these pretty charts, as well as the new reporting functionality that I'll cover in just a minute, to shoot up to your e-staff and board and executive team. Let me make it a little bigger so you can see it. All right. First, a couple things I'm going to highlight are this malware download session chart at the very top there. That's where you can see what happened on a specific day. So for instance, when you look here on the 11th of May, there is a huge spike in the number of sessions that occurred. What does that tell you? Anyone? What does that tell you? Should you look more at the 11th because something big happened? Yes. Especially because the 12th and the 10th are much lower. So good indication of volumes. More interesting to me, though, are these right here. This is the application delivery vector of an unknown threat. So if I told you, you can only look at 10 apps, because you only have time to look at 10 apps, wouldn't you like to know that, for instance, we know SMTP and web browsing, but FTP, IMAP, Flash, ForSync, and proxy, which could be not an indicator, would deserve your attention and provide an opportunity to apply app ID, right? If you're not looking at these apps like ForShare, you should be, because this is definitive proof that an actor or an unknown piece of malware is being delivered over these apps. So always prioritize those first from that perspective. Yes, we show you source and destination. Where is it coming from? Where is the C2 going to? It's a good tool and it's a good indicator for what you should be focusing on. But the most important thing to me on this dashboard is the tags. So when I talk about context and when I talk about what we need to drive with this tool, it is all about tags. These are built by our Unit 42 team to denote the actor, the campaign, the adversary, the malware family, the malicious behavior, and the exploit. So now you're not just seeing, oh, something bad happened. You're seeing, this is what it is, and I'm going to tell you more about it. So let's take a quick trip. These are all malicious behaviors here. You can see the little icon shows you that. And if we look at some of the threats, I'm going to take a specific one and show you. When this happened, I would imagine all of you got an email that you would like to look at specifically WannaCry or WannaCrypt. What happened? Was I impacted? What do I need to know about it? So I'm going to show you an example of what that tag looks like. So first off, what would happen is you get a sample, it would cross your network, your cloud, your endpoint, and it would say, I'm going to conclusively tag and identify what it is. That tag would be able to tell you things in very, very interesting ways. So let's go into the detail. Here's the description. So the context around all the details of that tag are right there. And most importantly is this definition. Look at this one. That is very detailed and very long. Do you have time to build a tag definition like that for all the threats? No, it would take you hours. It took us hours. So I want to give you the ability to say, I don't care what that definition is. All I care is it's WannaCrypt, and that it was seen on the 13th, coming in over SMTP to Scott Simkin in my organization in this location because you have user ID keyed into it. Pinpoint what it is, pinpoint who is delivered to over the network, and what you need to do about it, and I'll show you that now. So if I go back to search and I look at it, all I'm doing now is I'm in the search capability of AutoFocus, and I've pulled down into a tag search for WannaCryptor to look at what's happening. You can do this for your organization. You can do this for public samples, which is data that has been pulled in from a thing like VirusTotal or others, and then all samples, which is anonymized view of everything. Now let's go into this specific tag. So this was actually seen very recently. You can see 614 is when it was observed. These are all the different denotions of different hashes and SHAs and import hashes, et cetera. You can, of course, look at VirusTotal. So has it been observed or not by top AV vendors? And then let me go, actually I picked out the wrong sample. Let me go into this one, more interesting. Great. The next thing you want to see is this section right here. So a couple different things to note. First of all, you see these red flags? Those are what you should be looking at. The red flags are your guide to be a threat hunter. What we've done is we've said, for instance, this connection activity. Connection activity is a high fidelity indicator you should look at, as is DNS. So now you're in a world where I have one DNS, a piece of DNS activity. What is DNS? Actionable in nature. You can prevent it, you can block it, right? On the network, on the firewall. So I have now said, I care about WannaCryptor, or I saw WannaCryptor on my network. There is one piece of DNS activity, as in this specific domain right here, that I should block. Does that make your life easier? I hope so. I see some nods. So now you are looking at, I mean, I can't even, this is just gibberish. So you have, IQ, and it has been seen 461 times. Again, remember, we have 1 trillion indicators. So 461 out of 1 trillion, that's a very, very small percent. All of them are malicious. So associated with malicious samples, none of them are associated with grayware, and 2 of them are associated with benign. So now, once again, verification of intelligence, done. You are done. You can block this confidently on your firewall using AutoFocus. And of course, little secret, some people don't know, you can look up domain and URL classification information. So what's the passive DNS history? How does what is the wildfire DNS in the URL category? And what is the response as well, and response type? And then here's the kicker. So I'm going to say add this to an export list called block me. So I've now ripped out the indicator from a search that we did in minutes, and I'm adding it to a system that can be consumed automatically by your next generation firewall, automatically, if you use MindMeld, which is free as part of AutoFocus. So now you can be in a situation where you're pulling all these indicators out, you're driving them into a list, and I'll show you how to do the automated list in 1 second, and blocking it very, very quickly. So just to give you a couple other examples in this specific WannaCry attack, you have this connection activity to these specific IPs with these parent processes that, again, are all bad. So look at this one. Only one time. Once. You definitely want to block that one from that perspective. And Now let's abstract these indicators from the sample. So another new thing we built with the release associated with PanOS 8.0 is what we call an indicator store. This indicator store says, instead of looking sample by sample, which we know can be a hard and difficult workflow, let's look at all the highly prioritized, really bad indicators associated with that search, right? So now, WannaCryptor, what are all the malicious IPs that you want to block? So it gives you a great perspective on the aggregate of it and something really interesting. Since we integrated MindMeld into this, remember how I said you can pull in third-party sources of intel and you could overlay them with AutoFocus? This is one way to get to that. So you will be able to pull in, whether it's Proofpoint or open source intel or CrowdStrike, et cetera, pull it into MindMeld, overlay it so that you can see the match. Again, more efficacy, more fidelity of the indicators that are associated with WannaCryptor that you should use to make your blocking decision, right? How do I stop it? How do I stop it with these aggregated indicators across IP, domain, and mutexes, which are just mutually exclusive identifiers, a good way to define uniqueness or presence on an endpoint. So now I want to show you the power of search. Have you all been in a situation where you get an indicator, whether it be from a third-party feed, and you say, tell me more, give me more data? This is how you do that. So now you're looking at, okay, yes, domain, file name, hash, IP address, that's boring, it's needed, it's not fun to talk about. But you also have session identifiers. So look at the full context you get here from IMEI for mobile devices, the industry, the recipient user ID, or all your dynamic analysis session identifiers, like the command and control traffic, the things like mutex and registry keys, Mac OS files, as well as Android APKs. So now you can say, okay, I have a domain I want to look up. I'm just going to take an example we've used for a while because it's easy. WellPoint, which is associated with a big healthcare data breach here in the down south in the United States. And what you've done is you've gotten that indicator, you've dropped it into AutoFocus, you searched for it, and you've quickly contextualized it for what is this associated with? Okay, from this indicator, I got to a tag. This tag is either Black Vine, they're known by many names, but Black Vine is a state-sponsored adversary group that you can look at right here. Cyber espionage campaigns since 2012, including aerospace, energy, and healthcare organizations. Great. I now know what that indicator is in reference to, again, in minutes. And that's what I keep saying is workflow-wise, from hours of investigation and analytics and hunting to minutes is what we're trying to deliver here with AutoFocus. There's a lot of really powerful features that I don't have time to go into right now in terms of showing the search history, saving a search, importing and exporting it, et cetera. Of note, this is very important for many people in the audience. From a API level side, everything I've shown you in the API or in the UI is accessible for machine readable data via API. So when you have those custom systems, things that you want to pull in, it is really important that you have the ability to also pull in the data from the API, that you can pre-populate those queries, especially another tip, if you don't have the Python library that we have put out available for free, it makes things really simple. It's been available for a while now. Check it out in GitHub or our live community, or you can consume it via more traditional API methods. Really, really useful. Now, let's go back to our WannaCryptor example and show you the power of MineMeld. So going back to WannaCryptor, I'm just running a search, and now let's do something with it. So remember I showed you the indicators on a sample by sample or the indicator store? Now let's automate it. So if I click that MineMeld button, what we've done is we've created what we call a miner in MineMeld. So MineMeld has three concepts. One, miners, inputs. Two, processors. So how do you rip out the indicators, IPs, URLs, domains from those samples? And three, output. How do I send it for enforcement to other things? So I'm just going to name this one WannaCry. I'm going to select any, and then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect it to that output or processor I just talked about. So let's do the IP, let's do the domain, as well as my, I don't have my URL one here, but you can do URLs as well. And very, very simply, you just click OK. You have now done something very special that can only be done because AutoFocus and MindMeld are working together. You've said anytime a sample that matches that conclusive tag crosses into AutoFocus, the complete AutoFocus data set, I want you, MindMeld, to pull out the IPs, URLs, and domains, high fidelity ones, those red highlighted ones, and push them into a workflow that can drive automated enforcement. So the world of having a giant list of indicators you have to manage and source and time out and drive enforcement upon, that's over. That is completely over. You can do it completely automated with MindMeld. And here's an example of a miner we have pre-configured to give you a sense of how powerful this is. So this is for another piece of ransomware. This is the graph database, just to make it really simple to understand what's happening. Where, see, here's that WannaCryptor miner that we just created that will pull in data from the WannaCryptor samples. Here's Loki. Loki is a known ransomware variant. Here are those processor nodes that I just showed you, where you're pulling out the hashes, the domains, and the IPs from those samples. And guess what? You're syndicating the result of that automated analysis to anything. So just you can see other data feeds, right? IPv4 data feeds, medium confidence feeds, low confidence feeds. You can trick this out however you want. Common use case is sending it to Splunk, sending it to other processor nodes to do some delineation between indicators, or of course, most importantly, our firewalls. That is how you drive enforcement to our firewalls. And let me show you an example of that. So if I go into my high confidence feed, that URL right there is a external dynamic list. So now if I go to my firewall, this is how simple it is to ingest new indicators for enforcement on using MindMeld and using our core platform. So while this logs in, basically what I'm going to show you here is the things you are very well familiar with for those of you who look at our firewalls every single day. So go to the Objects tab, look at this external dynamic list section. This is how you do it generally. And check this out. These MineMeld EDLs, MineMeld ransomware, WannaCry blacklist, WannaCry IP blacklist, all of these things that have MineMeld in the URL string, that's that URL I just showed you. So you copy it, you put it in the firewall policy, you are now automatically sending indicators for enforcement on the firewall. Is that powerful? I think it is. It hopefully saves you hours out of your day to do this manually, leveraging our core platform and AutoFocus MindMeld. All right, so now I want to circle back to the firewall for a second. For those of you who primarily go into PanOS and Panorama, the power of MindMeld here as well. So right now I'm in the wildfire submissions log. I'm looking at the indicators like the file name, the attacker IP address, or the victim IP address. And there's this little caret right here. So click that. When you have AutoFocus entitled on your firewall, you can open up the AutoFocus enrichment tab in PanOS and Panorama. So I'll let that load for a second. But what we're essentially doing is meaning you never have to go into the AutoFocus UI unless you want to. unless you have analytics and hunting workflows that you need that powerful, capable searching and visibility that we just showed you, this will show you what that indicator actually is. So it's not some obscure file name. It's literally saying, here's the number of sessions, here's how it's been observed in the industry and global organizations, what is the tag? So this is a PDF heap spray, malicious behavior. What is the passive DNS? And all the matching hashes. So it gives you a lot of enrichment and context right there in the firewall, and we are working to make this even better. So how do we drive more single workflow and single visibility from the core firewall interface? That's where we're going in the future. And should you want to pivot directly back into AutoFocus, you click the link, drops you into search, you're done. Two-way street though. So check this out. Now, if you want to pivot from AutoFocus and do a really simple thing, this is so important, folks. Let's say you get that indicator, URL, file name, and you want to ask this question. Has it been seen on my network? Do you often ask that question? Yes, I see some nods. The way you do that is you pull the indicator out, you click on this remote search button, you select whatever system you have, and let's say you're searching on IP, whatever you want, and then search. This will automatically send you to your firewall, and just for the sake of the demo and the time we have, I'll flip back to the monitor tab. And what that will do is automatically send you directly in to the unified log viewer with that, again, the search query you defined in AutoFocus and using remote search. Look at it and look at the data as in what has happened on my network. So again, whether you want to go from AutoFocus to PanOS and Panorama, or you want to go from Panorama to AutoFocus, it's a two-way, bidirectional and bilateral workflow that makes it very, very easy and simple for you to do the hard work of correlating data and trying to figure out what actually happened. So in terms of AutoFocus, there's a lot of other functionalities that I apologize I don't have time to show you. We'd love to show you more in personal. I can come talk to you, or our experts on the threat team can come talk to you as well. So we can absolutely show you much, much, much more. Now let me pull it back to our slides, and I want to take some questions and be able to take some time. All right. So just to sum it up for AutoFocus, we'll let that do its thing. The thing I love about AutoFocus, and the thing I loved about AutoFocus in the 2.5 or 3 years that it's 2.5 years it's been in the market, is it's all about simplification. It's all about reducing complexity, and it's all about driving time, or driving down that time it takes to analyze, hunt, and do analytics upon massive quantities of high fidelity, high efficacy data. So whenever you're in a position of wanting to add that kind of capability to your security staff, to your firewall admin staff, think AutoFocus and think how we can speed those workflows and make every single person into that threat hunter, whether you're on the firewall admin team or the SOC or you're a malware analyst who wants to get into tons of detail. AutoFocus should be your tool of choice, especially with the new enhancements, things like Multigo and MindMeld, and the better integration with our core next generation firewall. This is an area that I want to go down that journey with you, and I want to be there partnering to make sure that you have the tools and the data to keep your organization safer. And that's what we're trying to do here with AutoFocus. Hopefully it's useful and provides a lot of value to you. So with that, I think we just a couple minutes to talk about questions, comments, anything else you want me to cover. We have some mics. You can just shout it out. We don't have too big of a room. Questions? I'm looking. No, not a hand. Hand?
Scott?
Yes.
Are you going to add the data enrichment that you have from AutoFocus into Firewall and
Great comment. Yep, so really good comment just for the room is, are we going to drive better into the Splunk app for Palo Alto Networks, which many of you leverage, more AutoFocus data? The answer is absolutely yes. We are working on updating the Splunk app with more AutoFocus enrichment and data, more to come, but it shouldn't be too much longer. Yep. What's that? Oh, it's already there? Never mind. Bilal is telling me it's already there. Update your Splunk app. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Come on, more questions. I know there's got to be more. Is that a hand in the back? I can't see. Shout it out. The light's really bright, so I'm having trouble seeing. Yes, please, go ahead.
Just piggybacking on that question. So do you currently have APIs available so that we can integrate with you? Is that public?
Great question. What do the APIs look like? So we have a absolutely phenomenal API reference documentation as well as APIs natively available in AutoFocus. So if you want to pull that into a SIM, into any other solution out there in the world, we have it available today already. It was a core part of AutoFocus from the very beginning, because to fulfill the workflows I can imagine you're thinking about, whether it be Splunk or others, yes. Thank you. Anything else? I didn't realize how hard it was to see people. No? Nothing? Awesome. All right. So I'll be hanging out here. Is that a question? No. I'll be hanging out here if you want to come up and chat further, but thank you. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much.